What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Traders Mind Chat live show. Today we have live trading for you guys. These are actually the first set of trades that I've put on this year. I have a strict policy to not trade at all when I'm not feeling well. I kicked off the year with COVID. Kicked my ass for about a week, but feeling a lot better now, thankfully. And market started to improve yesterday. Put on a couple of trades. We'll go through those trades in just a moment. We'll talk about those trades. We'll talk about other ideas that I'm seeing, and we'll answer your questions. Talk about the trades that you want to talk about. Analyze any kind of ideas that are on your radar. And yeah, let's get into it. And for right now, if you could drop a comment, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you could hear and see me okay. That's always good. And make sure that you hit the like button. That's going to help the channel out a bit too. All righty, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So right now I've got two trades on. Actually, well, why don't I make this a little bit bigger so that way you guys could see it. This is the chart layout that I always like to go with for my individual trades. This kind of quad look where I've got a monthly chart, a weekly chart, a daily chart, and then a 30-minute chart. So that way I have all the different perspectives in view. Um, I'm mostly finding setups. Now, when I'm looking for setups, I'll find them on the weekly time frame. Then I'll drill down into the daily, and I'll tighten up my reward to risk, my entry and my stop loss down here on the 30 minutes. So this is the first trade that came on my radar. RJF, Raymond James Financial. I'll make it a little bit bigger here on the 30-minute time frame and walk you through what I was seeing. But basically, I saw this tightening up, and I'll put my annotations back on over here. What I saw, right? So zoom out a bit. I saw this flat base, which it had broken out about a week ago, and then I saw it starting to tighten up again, and it was that tightening up action up here, the almost lot like a little flag, almost lot like a not quite, well, what I would consider a base on base, but starting to be like a base on base, where you have a this initial base, then it forms this little consolidation up here. And so I decided to buy that breakout. And so far, it hasn't really gone anywhere. It's still above my buy point. I'm likely going to raise my stop on this idea to break even. I might cut it by the end of the day if it doesn't move. But that's where this one is at. I also have this yellow dotted line here. That's another place where I would look to roll my stop up to. Um, Generally, well, when I'm thinking about where am I going to place a stop, right? Like that's a common question. Let me know if this is a question that you ask yourself, like where to place your stop. Is that a question that you ask yourself, or is that a question that you struggle with? Type into the comment. Let me know if how comfortable you are with stop placement. Generally, the way that I like to operate is I like to have my stop below some level of support, some level of price structure. So that's why when this trade started, right? So if we hit the little replay button, this is one of the best features on uh, TradingView, in my opinion. You could see like how price ran up and then it started to tighten up over here. So my thought was to enter on a breakout to the highs and have a stop loss right below that low. fast forward a bit, and price breaks out this morning, right? So my initial stop is down here, and comes back in and basically flattens out. So well, again, we'll see what happens by the end of the day. At this point on this kind of breakout here, right? Like it had some decent volume coming up the right side of this, but on the actual breakout, volume has been uh, fairly non-existent. So I don't have a ton of conviction in this idea. Um, Now, on the other hand, here's one that is working out pretty well so far. Ticker symbol ARLP, Alliance Resource Partners. Something else to point out too with both of these. So RJF Financial Company. Um, the ARLP, that is, in the energy sector, and that's where I've seen most of the ideas, most of the setups that, uh, were presented yesterday, last week, or even this week. Uh, a lot of them tending to be in the energy, finance, and the banking sector too. So this is another one, right? And so, let's start by zooming out again. And some of the things that I liked about this idea in ARLP, and for seeing a bunch of people just join right now. Well, first off, welcome. As you guys have questions, and I don't think I mentioned this at the top of this, but as you have questions, just put them into the chat. I'm happy to stop, go over anything, answer questions on the fly. Um, so this idea here, ARLP, saw that it was a leader, right? Like the first thing that caught my attention was this relative strength line being at highs ahead of the price action. That's what that little ball there represents. I also saw that it was working the right side of the base, and it was doing it on increasing volume. And on the right side of the base, each week was closing near its high of the week. That got me interested in this idea. So, uh, look at it a little bit closer on the daily, try to find an entry point, and then I'll drill down into the 30-minute. So let me turn on the uh, the annotations that I made. I mark up my charts quite a bit, and you can see that the pattern here. Right, I marked up a bunch of stuff already. So what I was seeing was this being a cup with high handle, right? So it worked its way up the right side of the cup. Volume dried up in the handle area. That's what you like to see. And on the breakout, so far, volume's elevated on the breakout. So picture perfect as far as that kind of stuff goes. Um, Something else that I really liked about this idea, and one of the reasons why it was one of my top ideas going into today, and why we were talking about it quite a bit in our Discord room. We've got a separate Discord room for our elite members. One of the things that I was talking about with them, what we were talking about in the room, was how price tightened up down here on the 30-minute. And I love when price does this because it allows us to really tighten up our entry point, our risk, the amount that we could buy of an idea while still risking just a very minuscule amount. And so in this handle area, right, like we don't have to put our stop down here. I have to put my stop over here to start out the trade. uh, in retrospect, I could have even raised it up here, where I now have half of my stop loss. So what I did was I bought this breakout, broke out, heavy volume, fantastic, and then from there, um, I have scaled out, right? Hit my first scale out. So got some weird hair, I think, from the microphone in my mouth. Anyway, um, got my first scale out, right? So the way that I like to treat every single trade is I like to scale out as I'm making multiples of the amount that I risk. So if I make one times the amount that I've risked, take a little bit off, and you can see right there, like I sold 10% of the position. Great, small token amount, feels good, but I want to keep the majority of the position on to continue compounding and allow it to work. When I get to 2R, right? Like the larger goal is to get to 2R and beyond. But the main first goal, get to 2R. I'm basically a 2-to-1 trader. That's what my stats were all of last year. That's what my stats tend to be historically. That I will typically make on average two times my risk on a trade. So averaged out. So if price gets over here, I'm taking off half of my trade and allowing the other half to run. What this one did was it broke out, pulled back, and then ran up again. And so that allows me to, that first breakout, I was able to raise my stop almost immediately to this level right over here, that 1380 level. Uh, then, great. So that's taking off so much risk, right? Like that took off like half the risk of this trade. Love getting that risk off the table as quickly as I can. Uh, when it's called for, when there's an opportunity to do so, and I define opportunity to do so by the price structure. So raised my full stop. Then what happened? Price breaks out, consolidates, breaks out again over here. When it tripped that 1R target. So at that point, I was able, right. So I saw that breakout, pulled back, ran up again, and now it's consolidating over here. I'm using this little level right there as like, oh, that's like another potential floor. So let me raise at least half of my stop to break even. So now this trade is basically risk free, right? If it takes out this stop, then nothing gained, nothing lost. If it takes out that stop, then it's basically eating up that profit. So there's no none of my capital risk on the table at this point in the trade. So that's where I like to get into trades. I like to get into trades that way fairly quickly. So that way now it's more allowing it to do what it needs to do and playing with the house's money. It looks like we've got a comment in here. Ah, Ryan. Ryan asks, uh, great friend of the show. Which time frame do you base your entry on? So, Ryan, the way that I try to find my exact entry point, it tends to be down here on the 30-minute. But that said, I want to have confluence across time frames. So that could mean that either my stop loss has the 30-minute, has the daily, and potentially even has the weekly all jiving together. If the either the entry or the stop have at least three time frames driving together, fantastic. If just one of them is there, right? So let's say on this entry, let's take off all these annotations. It'll be a little bit less noisy. Um, on this initial entry, right? Today's entry, it was getting the entry point was making a new high on the week. It was getting above the daily high over here, and it also jived very well on the 30-minute. It was getting above this area here, right? So the entry point worked across three time frames. That's fantastic. That's what I love to see in any kind of a trade that I'm going to take. Now, as far as the stop loss goes, the stop loss I had down here. So if my stop loss is down here, right? Like I'm looking at the 30-minute, but that's not where I'm starting, right? Like I'm looking down there to see like how can I tighten this up, but where does this fall on a daily time frame? Oh, well, it actually was uh this day's low here. Well, what was that? That's Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday's low. Great. So it's working on the 30-minute and it's working on the daily. Where did that fall on the weekly time frame, right? My stop was at 1348, I believe it was. Yeah, 1348 was the initial stop. This is a spreadsheet, by the way, that I keep, that I share with our members. It's my own trading journal that I use. So 1348 on this trade, that was the initial stop. And that also happens to be the current low of the week. So again, it doesn't always happen this way. When it does, it's even better. But the entry and the stop loss worked across the weekly, the daily, and the 30 minutes. So I really love it when you have that multi time frame syncing up. Um, it adds a lot more conviction to the trade for me. Great question. Um, any other questions on uh, ARLP? Think we kind of beat this one to death. Um, Let me see. Well, what else about this? Yeah, so mentioned that it was in the energy sector, um, one of the top ranked industry groups, and something else too. Well, with seeing the initial analysis, right? So, how did this thing come on my radar? Let me bring down Market Smith. And we spoke a little bit about Market Smith and doing this kind of stuff yesterday in yesterday's live stream about market analysis. I'll run through it again here uh, just a little bit so you guys have a stronger sense of how to take all this stuff and put it together. But basically, I'm running screens. Every single day, I'll run a variety of screens. There, you can see them all right here, right? So looking at 52-week high, relative strength being at 52-week highs, looking at volume, looking at volume either being elevated or drying up, looking at a bunch of different stuff, and then right, technical term, and then looking at what's actually setting up. So when I look at what's actually setting up and I build a focus list, right? So yesterday there were 15 stocks on my focus list. I one of the first things that I look at is, well, what sectors are these stocks coming from? What sectors are they coming from? Well, what I'll start to notice is like, oh, look at that. There's a few banking stocks. There's a bunch of energy. There's a bunch of finance. Right? Like that catches my attention. It All the setups happen to be in a small handful of sectors. Great. So what I want to do then is to be participating in those sectors and to basically cherry pick what I think is the best setup uh, from those. Right? I'm not going to trade all of them, but I'm going to uh, find the best one, the best few. So what I did, right, and so now we're starting to get into the next part of this, which is um, ideas on my radar. So here's a focus list from yesterday, right, and you can see that the first two, the ARLP and the RJF, those actually triggered, so they're on my open trades. They're not here anymore. But some of the other trades that looked interesting to me at the time, right? Uh, SFBS, uh, part of the banking sector, saw this tightening up. It never triggered, right? Like so far, it hasn't triggered. It didn't trigger an entry. It did it fall below the stop loss. The low of the day is 87.10. I would have had my stop at 86.85. So that order is still sitting well with the broker. I'll take it off by the end of the day, and then my process is I'll I'll reset. I'll reset at the end of each trading day, and I will basically like wipe the slate clean from any open orders, right? Like orders that haven't triggered, and then a trade like this in SFBS, like it goes back into the pile and it gets reevaluated again versus every other possible opportunity that's coming up. So I'll do that. Um, and let's see what else. So this was on the radar, didn't trigger. Um, Riley uh, Financial. Uh, this I saw this as a halfway decent pullback setup where price ran up, pulled back. It kind of pulled back on slightly heavier volume. Wasn't a huge fan of that, but it did find support around the 21 EMA, and I really liked the shakeout there. Started to follow through yesterday, right? So there's some traders that like to buy on the day that it shakes out and to buy that high with a stop over there. That would have worked out. I tend to be a little bit more of a what you would call a breakout trader, where um, be basically looking for like a little flat congestion area and then buying on that kind of a breakout. Um, The reason why, and I actually like this setup quite a bit too. You could see over here, like I have my action list. Then I have the A level trades, B level trades, C level trades, trades under review. Nothing to review right now. I reviewed all of them from yesterday, but this was in what I considered an A-level setup. The reason why I didn't put an order for this one is because RJF is in the same exact group. So I didn't want to put on two trades that were in the same group. It figured if the market starts to get going, there'll be other setups. And I'd rather just pick the one that I thought was the best in the group. So at the time, that was RJF. Let's see what else. Um, Monoreal saw it this way. Uh, this worked as a kind of like a sloppy double bottom with handle. Um, let's see what other notes did I have on this one. Um, Monoreal. The bottom volume was up greater than the past 10 days. Today's price found support at the 21 EMA and anchored VWAP. It also broke back above the 50-day, closed at the high of the daily range. The pattern can count as a double bottom. Yes, double bottom, base on base, or a triangle. Yeah, double bottom, base on base, right? So you also have this. Uh, I'm seeing now is like this inverted head and shoulders, kind of sloppy a little bit. That could be the shoulder. Maybe the shoulder's over there. You might treat this whole thing as a cup-shaped base. But anyway, base on base pattern, fairly sloppy double bottom. Um, yeah, I did like how volume came off the 50, but yeah, this one too. MNRL, part of the energy sector. So in that case, I already chose one from the energy sector, one that I thought was better. That being ARLP. Didn't have to place orders for everything, just place orders for the ones that you think are the best. In this case, thought ARLP was the best because, well, look at the price action. Right? Like the relative strength line was already at all-time highs. The or 52-week highs, I should say. The price was leading, consolidated tightly, very close to the highs. More volume coming into it than MNRL. This is a fine setup, but if I'm have the opportunity to look at both and which one do I want to take, ARLP was the better of the two. Yeah, well, we could go through the rest of these stocks. Bro was a pretty decent setup. That one's broke out. Working so far, but the you see over here like how the breakout, the volume down here, kind of negligible. Like it's stuff like that that doesn't give me a ton of conviction in the name. Um, but anyhow, did not take that trade. Like the I like to see what a lot of stocks start to work. Well, when we have a basket, when we have our trade ideas, um, and I find it to be very helpful to see how many are working, how many are not working, whether I'm in them or not, because it's such a great gauge of market health that it's almost like you find a bunch of trade ideas. If they're all working, great, then that means that this is a good environment. If you find a bunch of trade ideas and they all like pop and drop, or that they all like just fall like a stone, then that means that, hey, you know what, it's probably not a great environment. So lots of ways to gauge the general market health just from the trades that you're finding. All right, guys. Let me know what questions you have. We went through a bunch of stuff. We went through uh, the open trades that I have. We went through a few ideas that are on the radar from yesterday. Let me know what trades you're interested in. Well, what are you guys trading? What are you guys trading? Well, what ideas are on your radar? Let me know. Throw it into the comments. While we're waiting for that, let's take a look at a few others here. Yeah, like there's so many from the um, from the finance sector, right? Like so, yeah. Here's Coop. Uh, this was another solid one too. This double bottom, right? And again, not a perfect double bottom. It does the second leg of the double bottom does undercut the right, so it's got that. The My problem with this setup is that the majority of it is below the 50-day moving average. And not only that, you have the 50-day starting to curve downward. It's not something that would prevent me from taking the trade, or just like tossing the idea. Like the idea is obviously on the focus list, but it's one of those things that takes it from an A level trade down to a B level trade. So that's why I have this one ranked as a B level trade. Yeah, TSC, Tri-State Capital Holdings. Another one broke out of this flat base that made this little flag over here, started to break out. Um, let's see, well, what else do we got on the radar? Um, this was forming another flat base, call it a flat base, call it a cup. Um, it was tightening up in this area. This is where too I like to come down onto the 30-minute and see, is there another way in this pop. Yeah, here's one where um yeah, popped out today, right? So it would have triggered both an entry. Let me see. Would that have triggered a 1 hour scale out? Yeah, it did. So this is one, right? Like super tight entry and stop. You could have gotten in with just a 1%, less than a 1% uh reward stop loss. It would have triggered your first scale out, but it would have stopped you out as well. Right? So another thing why this is a B level setup, it's tight, a little too tight. Yeah, and over here too, like it ran up, started to form a handle, lower volume. Um, Let me see. Well, what didn't I like about this one? Did I put notes on EBC? I don't think so, because it was a, yeah, B level trade. Generally, like I don't write notes on like the trades that I don't plan on taking on. Like every once in a while, like I'll throw a few notes on it, but um yeah, like that that's just it's like a so-so idea. Like it doesn't call to me. Plus also with this too, right? Like so you have the relative strength trending down. Yeah, the relative strength started to turn up over here, right? But you can see like how the relative strength is nothing to write home about. It's not like how with ARLP, right? Like the left to right, you're going straight up, not quite straight up, but you're moving higher. And you're moving higher across time frames. Then you look at something like this, and the relative strength is doing the opposite. Here's a question from Confluence Trader. Confluence Trader says, "How many number of trades do you consider to be a bad environment?" Ooh, interesting question. So I think it's relative. I think it's relative. So what I would do is I'll go and I will look at the number of trade ideas that I'm finding, the number of trade ideas that I'm finding each weekend in the middle of the week, and also taking that information and comparing it to weeks and months prior. So to come back to this, and looking at the spreadsheet, and I will zoom in a bit, coming over to market mood, right? So on this spreadsheet here, I'm tracking a whole bunch of stuff, uh, but I'm also tracking the number of trade ideas that I'm finding each week. So this week, only 19 ideas out of 300 ideas in the universe list. That's not very high percentage. The last week there were 56 ideas. Better, but you could see like how the market treated those ideas, right? Like most of those ideas got whacked. So not a great environment. Week before that, 36 ideas. That's still on the lighter side. 36 is still on the lighter side. Most of them worked though, right? So that was good. 27, that's still on the light side. Then yeah, 37's, so like roughly like I would say that probably for me in the 40 30 to 40 range, like that's light but improving relative to where we are now, right? Around 19. Um the best period that I've seen in a while was back here. This is September, October, a lot like end of October. Uh 70, 80 ideas. That's a lot. That's a robust environment. Um but all this stuff, right? Like so I'm tracking this, and it's the data that I'm finding, right? So let's say, uh, let's personalize this a little bit. So let's say that you're doing the same kind of analysis on your own, right? Like so you're running your screens, you're looking for trade ideas. You're doing it once a week. Maybe you're doing it each day, but track those ideas, track the number of those ideas, track how the market treats those ideas, and then you'll start to see over time, well, how many ideas is a lot for you, how many are few for you. It'll take a little while to get that feel, but once you start doing it and you're consistent with it, like that's how you have like such robust data that we're like, I hardly look at the news. Like yesterday, well, we did a whole live stream about the news, like something that's it, like you guys out there will want to talk about it, and so like to me it's just like, okay, interesting. Market watch has XYZ to say, there's this in the news, but it's this data here that I trade off of. It's it's completely objective, right? Like there's no other story around it. That it makes life a lot easier, a lot less stressful when you're able to just look at your own data in this way. And this is what I teach people how to do. This is what we have a whole library on in our elite program. Ryan says, "Have you already decided how long you will hold a trade before you enter it?" Very, very good question, Ryan. Thank you for that. So, whenever I enter a trade, I set an intention for how long I want to hold that trade, whether I'm intending for it to be a swing trade, whether I'm intending for it to be something longer term. Um, with that in mind, um, if I'm entering something longer term, then I know that most of how I'm going to manage a trade is going to be on the weekly charts and on the monthly charts. So it's uh, so I won't really get shaken out based on day to day action. That said, just because a trade is intended to be long term doesn't mean that it's actually going to end up being that way. A fine example of that is with crypto, right? So let's jump back over here and look at crypto. Right. So I had, well, what I had intended to be long-term trades in Ethereum, in Bitcoin, uh, in Doge last year. Yeah, like Doge was my biggest gain all last year. I still have the annotations on this. Um, so bought it back here, right, in February, intending for it to be long term. It had this monster run, 1000%. Like, I can't see a giving back, right? Like, so if I decided that, you know what, I'm going to hold this forever, I could still be at a gain on it, right? I bought it at 4 cents initially. I would still be sitting on a 200% gain, but I can't see allowing 1,000% to turn into 200%. So that's why I ended up selling it. I sold it somewhere in like the 50 cent range, somewhere around there in what was it, uh May of last year. Yeah, somewhere around like 50, 45 cents, something like that. So yes, I set an intention when I take my trade, so that way I know how I should manage it. But yeah, even a long term trade could end up being exited the next day or the next week. Like if I get stopped out of a potential long term trade, like a risk management is still number one. Let's see. Well, what other questions do you guys have? Happy to stay on for another uh, couple of minutes. Where time flies during these live sessions. It's already 2:37 Eastern time. Normally, I like to do these for about a half an hour, but yeah, happy to answer any other questions if you guys have them. Let me take a look over at ShareVision too. People on ShareVision are normally pretty quiet. Don't see much popping in to the chat over there, but you guys over here on YouTube, you're a lot more active. Appreciate everybody here that's watching. Um, tomorrow, tomorrow we've got Dennis Wilborn coming back on the live stream. Dennis is a fantastic guy, runs a active trend trading service. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about Fibonacci. He's a big Fibonacci guy. We're going to talk about what he calls the secrets of Fibonacci and to use it to look at time frames. Right? Like so, I'm pretty basic with my use of Fibonacci, just drawing it from swing high to swing low and seeing where the levels fall. I'm real curious to see how Fibonacci works across time frames. So looking forward to that discussion with Dennis tomorrow. It'll be at 2 o'clock Eastern. We'll be going for an hour, maybe a bit longer than an hour. We'll do the interview. We'll have open Q&A. We'll be answering questions throughout. Really looking forward to that and looking forward to seeing all you guys there too. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in, so we'll wrap this up. I want to say thank you all so much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it. Whatever comments or questions that you have later on, like just throw it into the comment section. I read all the comments and I want to make these live streams as valuable to you guys as I can. So your feedback is what allows that to happen. So I'll leave it at that. And thanks so much, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Much love. Peace out. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below and become a part of the Marrow Wealth community. And make sure that you check out some of the other videos on the channel. They're exactly what you need to see. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them. Leave a comment.